The crack of a gunshot shattered the peaceful Saturday morning like a hammer through glass. Dana Williams dropped instinctively to one knee, her hand reaching for the familiar weight of her service weapon. But today, visiting her parents in the quiet suburban sprawl of Willow Creek, she was unarmed, just a daughter home for the weekend, dressed down in jeans and her faded FBI Academy sweatshirt. The sharp report of the gun jolted me from my chair inside the house. I ripped open the front door, the wood slamming against the wall as I sprinted onto the porch, my heart thundering like a drumline. Across the neatly trimmed lawn, I saw Hermie daughter Dana standing calm and steady, the barrel of a pistol aimed square at her chest by a man whose face had flushed the color of a ripe tomato. Took me a moment to process the sight. There, in the middle of the bright, sunny cul-de-sac, stood Dennis Brewster, the self-declared head of the HOA's security team. A man whose real battles were more likely fought in checkout lines at the local grocery store than any genuine field of danger. And yet, there he was, shaking with adrenaline, brandishing a gun at my daughter, the very daughter he had no idea was an FBI tactical commander capable of taking him apart in 3 swift moves without spilling her coffee. The morning had begun like any other. The sun hung high and lazy in a cloudless sky. Lawns freshly mowed. Somewhere down the block, the faint crackle of bacon sizzling on a grill carried on the breeze. Dana arrived with her usual grin, sliding out of her Jeep and handing me a bag of donuts she'd grabbed from her favorite bakery on the way. We laughed, trading stories from her last assignment, enjoying the calm of a rare family morning. She'd parked halfway over what might have once been marked as a visitor parking space, the lines now faded nearly to invisibility. No one had cared for years. No one except Dennis. I heard the screech of his worn-out HOA golf cart before I saw him barreling across the street, clipboard flapping wildly in one hand, his expression twisted with purpose. Dana barely had time to sip her coffee before Dennis leapt from the cart, stomping toward her like a cartoon villain, waving his clipboard like it was a saber. "You can't park here," he screeched, spittle spraying with every syllable. His chest puffed up like a bantam rooster ready for a fight. Dana remained cool, casually leaning against the side of her Jeep, arms folded, a small amused smile playing on her lips. She asked the obvious question, her voice calm, "Where does it say visitors can't park here?" Dennis fumbled with his paperwork, mumbling about unwritten policies, community expectations, the usual HOA nonsense. Then he demanded identification. Dana, having danced this dance in far deadlier circumstances, simply smiled and declined. That was the moment Dennis lost what little grip he had on reality. His face darkened from pink to crimson, and in a flash of dangerous stupidity, his trembling hand reached for the firearm holstered awkwardly at his hip. He drew the weapon, leveling it squarely at Dana's chest. From my place on the porch, my instincts screamed to charge across the lawn, to intervene, but Dana gave the smallest shake of her head. "Stay back. She had this." Dennis, his voice rising an octave, began shrieking about citizens' arrest and threats to the neighborhood, his words growing more frantic with each syllable. To anyone else, it might have sounded authoritative. But to those who listened closely, it was the manic babble of a man drunk on imagined power. Neighbors began to gather. Curious faces peeked from behind hedges, cell phones raised, a few chuckling as if this might be some HOA skit. But the laughter died the moment Dennis racked the slide on his pistol. The mood shifted instantly from spectacle to terror. Dana never flinched. If anything, she looked even more relaxed. Her voice lowered to that smooth, steady cadence I'd heard her use on high-risk negotiations. She asked Dennis if he truly wanted to escalate the situation further. But Dennis, lost in his fantasy of control, only screamed louder, his hands visibly shaking as he demanded Dana drop to the ground. Dana's gaze swept over the growing crowd, reading the room like a seasoned tactician. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into her pocket. I felt my body tense, helpless, watching her hand move as Dennis's finger twitched dangerously on the trigger. Dana withdrew a slim black wallet. Dennis shouted, calling it a weapon, his voice cracking. But Dana ignored the outburst. She flicked open the wallet with 2 fingers and held it high for the crowd to see. The badge inside caught the sunlight, a gleam of gold and authority. FBI. The crowd froze. Silence dropped like a curtain over the scene. Even Dennis stumbled, his mouth opening and closing without words. Dana's voice remained cool. "You've just committed aggravated assault on a federal officer," she said evenly. brandishing a firearm illegally, impersonating law enforcement, and unlawful detainment. You may want to consider your next move very carefully. Dennis's gun hand sagged as the reality of the situation finally began to seep through his thick skull. His eyes darted wildly, searching for support among the onlookers, but the phones continued to record in stunned silence. Dana clicked on the mic clip discreetly to the inside of her hoodie. Dispatch, this is Agent Dana Williams, badge number 64512. Armed suspect on scene, threatening a federal officer. Requesting immediate backup. Location transmitting now. Dennis's knees buckled. The weapon clattered to the pavement as he dropped to his knees, both hands raised high, his voice quivering with desperate apologies. The sound of approaching sirens cut through the morning air, growing louder by the second. I stepped off the porch at last, crossing the yard toward Dana as she stood, still and composed, above the groveling man at her feet. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. The strength radiating from her was absolute. Dennis, still kneeling, stammered about being authorized by the HOA, about protecting community standards. His excuses sounded weak even to his own ears. Dana didn't blink. She asked him one simple question, her tone ice-cold, "Are you even licensed to carry that firearm?" Dennis's eyes bulged. He fumbled over words, grasping at half-baked defenses about Second Amendment rights and neighborhood security, but he never gave a direct answer. The crowd pressed in closer now, everyone filming, everyone whispering. The HOA enforcer, the self-styled protector of the peace, was unraveling in front of the whole neighborhood. Dana held up her badge again, this time turning to the gawkers. Anyone interfering with an active federal investigation will be charged accordingly, she announced calmly. The space around her cleared instantly. Dennis, pale and sweating, reached toward his belt, perhaps for a fake badge or ID, but Dana's sharp gaze stopped him cold. Any further movement will be considered a threat, she warned softly. The sirens arrived, squad cars rolling into the cul-de-sac, lights flashing. Officers spilled from their cruisers, taking one look at the scene, Dana's badge, Dennis's weapon on the ground, and the crowd bearing silent witness. Without a word of protest, they secured Dennis's firearm and cuffed him, reading his rights as he whimpered excuses that no one was listening to anymore. But the show wasn't over. Karen, the HOA president, stormed onto the scene, clipboard in hand, fury radiating from every pore. She pointed at Dana, screaming about jurisdiction and rights and demanding Dana's immediate arrest for trespassing. Dana didn't even turn fully to face her. She lifted her badge once more. "Federal agent," she stated simply. "Your officer just committed felony assault against me. Interfering with this investigation is obstruction of justice." Karen's mouth flapped like a beached fish. She switched tactics, accusing Dana of impersonating law enforcement, of inciting conflict. The officers didn't so much as glance her way. The spectacle drew onlookers from the far edges of the neighborhood. Phones captured every second. By the time the officers escorted Dennis into the back of a cruiser, Karen had worked herself into such a frenzy that the supervising sergeant warned her to step back or face arrest herself. The neighborhood that had once cowered beneath the thumb of the HOA watched in fascinated silence as their self-appointed rulers unraveled before their eyes. And Dana, calm and unshaken, stood as the undeniable force that had toppled their fragile little empire. But this was only the beginning.